could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her, and it's scary, sadistic stuff.
You'd think by now David's team would stop leaving digital breadcrumbs like it's a damn scavenger hunt. But no, every time someone digs into this case, it just gets worse. We've now got a private investigator, Steve Fisher, who had all the receipts. According to him, whatever happened to Celeste wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing, it was deliberate and coldly planned.
Things are a lot easier than people try to make them sometimes, especially online, into these big things. And I thought this was going to be a tragic overdose, which it very well still could be. And they made a bad decision because they didn't want to expose a potential relationship and put her in this Tesla. And then maybe he thought he could get somebody to get rid of that car. And they were just like, no, I'm not doing it, and just got left there. But I will say this, there are some things that, and I'm talking physical evidence that was at that house that is, there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her, and it's scary, sadistic stuff. And that's why we're trying to learn more about that. I wish I could say more, but for obvious reasons I can't. But it doesn't have to do with how she died, but maybe how they were planning on ultimately getting rid of her, and how maybe that Tesla was just a holding spot at the time, and things just, their timing was just off. And it comes very close to the camera, although there is some motion blur, but you can see the person and you can see what they're wearing, something pretty distinctive. And there's photos that I have from 12 hours earlier, a person at the house wearing the same thing.
Then he mentions there's footage showing a clear shot of whoever was moving the Tesla down to what they were wearing. And photos from 12 hours earlier show someone at the same house in the exact same outfit. You'd think if you were about to do something that serious, you'd at least have the sense to change. That's not criminal genius, that's just sloppy.
The continuously that I've seen, there likely is a camera, but I've seen the car driven to that spot, and with the dates, with the date that it was, and they left town right after that. I'm certain that is the last time the car was driven. It was put there with her, in the front trunk.
Apparently, this all went down on July 29th. That's the last confirmed time David's Tesla moved before he hit the road for his tour. Convenient timing, huh? Fisher says it's very likely that when the car was moved, Celeste's body was still inside. So either someone on David's team was driving her on Hollywood with her in the front trunk, or they really didn't think this through.
Do you know who was driving that car, that Tesla? You don't have to tell me, but do you know the identity?
Yeah, as far as going to the final, that what we believe is the final parking spot where it was towed from, yes.
What's worse, Fisher claims they identified the driver. Like there's an actual face, not some vague shadow. But of course, they're keeping it under wraps while the investigation still builds, which is fair, but the internet's already out here connecting dots faster than the police ever will. And then there's this secret second property bombshell. Apparently, David had another rental spot just a mile away from his main Hollywood house. And this is allegedly where he kept Celeste. And if you think that sounds bad, it gets worse. That might be where she was killed. So yeah, this man was running a full-blown double life, and the address gap was literally a 4-minute drive.
That while David was on tour at the time between the Tesla being found and the search warrant being served, David was on tour, but somebody was in that house. And there was actually a report made, not with police, but that homeowner association has a robust private security company, and we've gotten videos from them and reports. And so who had that key is probably the same person that, had access to the Tesla.
Now let's talk about that rental home. It's basically where the police dropped the ball so hard it's embarrassing. According to Fisher, there were things the cops didn't take during their search warrant. Things like digital media, timeline evidence, and some creepy objects that screamed weird science project. Search warrants have limitations, sure, but whoever drafted this one must have had their eyes closed because apparently a ton of key evidence was left behind. So now you've got this luxury house sitting there, post-crime scene, with the homeowner freaking out because a dead girl was found in a tenant's Tesla. Imagine owning $1 million property and the guy renting it turns out to be hiding bodies like it's a storage unit. That's why he hired Fisher. Not out of kindness, but to protect his investment. I can't even blame him. And Fisher's been out here working like the LAPD's understaffed little brother, collecting footage, analyzing timestamps, and basically doing everyone's job for them. He's finding more evidence than actual detectives, which is wild, but not surprising.
His window was half to 3/4 of the way down, which is odd because it was a very short drive. And also at that on that day, this is the very end of July 29th, it was like 78 degrees at that time in the morning, or 77 degrees. And if it was on the street where the house is, so it's shaded by the house. So, if you're going, I don't know why the window would be rolled down unless there's something, offensive there. And then all of a sudden, one of the first things I picked up on when the news first broke about her being found in there, where they were towing the car away from the impound lot to LAPD, was why on a $104,000 car is there a Christmas tree air freshener hanging from the mirror? It seemed kind of odd to me, but I guess maybe they thought that would help.
Let's circle back to the Tesla because this thing tells half the story on its own. When Fisher got the footage, it showed something off. The window was halfway down. The drive was short, the weather was fine, around 78 degrees Fahrenheit, so why have the window rolled down unless something inside smelled horrific? Then when the car was impounded, it suddenly had a Christmas tree air freshener dangling from the mirror. Like, yeah, that'll totally mask the smell of decomposition. Great plan.
It's that dirty, except you could tell that they had run the windshield wiper like once to clear the dirt away so they could see.
Even the dirt on the car tells a story. It was caked up, hadn't been used in ages. The windshield had a single wiper mark like someone just cleared enough to see through. Lazy, half-baked cleanup attempt. David, my dude, you can't be out here making TikToks about your Tesla, then abandon it months later looking like it came out of a dust storm.
No, not from the time that the Tesla was left. So from the time the Tesla was left there, he literally immediately started the tour. There was a tour bus that was leased, and I'll tell you that Tesla was moved and literally a bus departed for tour.
So Fisher's sleuthing takes him through half of Beverly Hills, hitting up random houses and asking for their CCTV footage like he's running a neighborhood spy mission. And it worked! He actually found footage showing the Tesla being moved for the last time on the same day David left on tour. The second that car got parked, the tour bus rolled out. Clean handoff. Someone clearly moved that car to dump it and then dipped. He's confident he knows exactly who it was, but won't say who yet. And while we're waiting, everyone's eyes are on David's inner circle, because this guy didn't act alone. The timing's too perfect.
That vehicle and stuff out, because that's another thing that I think could be key in this, is that there's only one key to that house, and who had that?
Fisher also discovered that the house only had one key, so whoever had access to that key had access to the Tesla too. And guess what? Someone was still staying at the house while David was off touring. That's what the neighborhood's private security footage confirmed. Movement, visitors, lights on, all while the owner was out of state. So either the house was haunted or someone was still living there and cleaning up loose ends. That single key detail matters a lot because it narrows things down. You can't just have a random person rolling up if there's only one way in. So, someone close had that key. Someone David trusted. And if that's the same person driving the Tesla, then yeah, an accomplice is basically confirmed.
We have of Celeste is January 2nd, 2025.
Okay, now that's significant because we were wondering when, she was last seen alive. There was that surveillance footage of her seemingly running away from her neighborhood.
Now this is where things start to feel like a bad crime movie. David's black Tesla was apparently abandoned around January. Around the same time, he suddenly leases a red one. New car, new vibe, fresh start, right? Except the timing is awful, because that's also around when Celeste disappears. Her last confirmed photo is from January 2nd, 2025, and Fisher says everything changed around that month. So put it together. Celeste vanishes early January, David ditches his old Tesla by February, and months later, a body turns up in that same car. Like, you don't need Sherlock Holmes to connect those dots. People are debating whether her body was in that car for 8 months straight, which seems almost impossible, but the timeline still reeks of guilt. He hides the girl, she goes missing, he swaps cars, and the tour just happens to kick off when the Tesla's dumped. Yeah, no coincidence there. Here's where the secret rental theory comes in clutch. A Redditor pulled up receipts proving David was renting 2 different properties at the same time, both in the Hollywood Hills about a mile apart. That's where Celeste was supposedly hidden. And get this, there are photos and TikToks showing the same interior details, the same paintings, same kitchen, same bathroom decor. So unless David and Celeste were both interior design fanatics who coincidentally booked an Airbnb listing, that's confirmation she was there. People even found screenshots from her live stream showing her in that exact house. Same art hanging above the bed, so she wasn't just there visiting, she was staying there, meaning this was probably the place he kept her hidden when guests or management were over at the main mansion. It's creepy on a whole other level because the vibe screams secret jailhouse. He clearly didn't want her visible around his team, and the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. You're not killing someone in a multi-million-dollar mansion where people are constantly coming and going. You're doing it in the quiet property no one talks about.
Has anyone from David's team, management, legal, anybody reached out to you or your client?
I know that my client's been in touch with his manager, but only for the purpose of the lease, because they did ask to terminate the lease. And I believe the other manager that technically was the owner of the red Tesla, I think was in touch with him because they needed access to the house to get that vehicle and stuff out. Because that's another thing that they could be key in this, is that there's only one key to that house, and who had that and who had access to it and who was in it. Because we also have evidence that while David was on tour at the time between the Tesla being found and the search warrant being served, David was on tour, but somebody was in that house. And there was actually a report made, not with police, but that homeowner association has a robust private security company, and we've gotten videos from them and reports. And so who had that key is probably the same person that, had access to the Tesla. I definitely know who moved that Tesla on that late July before they went on tour. I can't say who the person, and I don't mean I can't say but I don't know who exactly was in the house, because it's just a report, but there's video, but you can't make a person out. But somebody was in the house, and being that there's only one key, it's like, okay, who had access at that time? So is it the same person that moved the Tesla? Was another last part of the plan about to go in motion as far as getting rid of her body? I don't know.
The one with the Tesla, with Celeste's body inside, when it was left there? Do you know the specific date of when it was left in Hollywood Hills?
I believe so. I believe it, late July. Very late July.
The thing that kills me about this whole situation is just how sloppy everything is. There's no clean planning here. It's like every step they took was done half-heartedly. Hiding her in a car registered to your name, parking it near your own neighborhood, commissioning her in a rental under your legal ID. These aren't criminal masterminds, they're TikTok amateurs trying to do Breaking Bad cosplay. And the Tesla details make it even dumber. Rolling down the window? Throwing in a random air freshener? Abandoning a luxury car like it's a trash can? Who does that? And the car's condition, dusty, unwashed with that weird one-swipe windshield, screams panic. They didn't have time to cover their tracks properly because the tour was starting.
Do you have any indication about where David is right now?
I don't. I have no idea. And it's kind of bizarre because his group has stayed so silent. What's left of his group, I guess. And I'm not even sure the conversations that the owner did have with his management in breaking that lease. I'm not even 100% sure his management knows at this time where he's at. I think his attorney might be the only one, and his parents.
So the theory that Celeste's body was supposed to be moved or destroyed before he left actually checks out. They probably planned to get rid of her in one of those sadistic ways Fisher mentioned, but time ran out, and they panicked. So instead, they parked the Tesla, rode out on tour, and just hoped no one would notice. Spoiler, everyone noticed. Now the Fisher's sitting on this mountain of evidence, saying he can't reveal who the driver is yet, which is probably for the best because if he dropped that name now, the internet would implode. But it also means the police are finally getting somewhere. He's already confirmed that he'll be turning this stuff over to LAPD, and apparently an arrest might be coming. Though knowing how slow these things move, it could take a while. Still, identifying that driver could be the missing piece they needed to tie everything back to David.